Biggest question next Thursday in the draft, probably who goes number 3? Justin Fields or Mac Jones? Now, Jones was the favorite last week. Fields overtook him this week. Today, Jones, again, a slight favorite following the news that Fields is dealing with epilepsy, but it's something he's always been dealing with, and it has not affected him at all on the field. Now, our Pete Prisco has the 49ers taking Fields in his latest mock. He has Jones sliding all the way to the Patriots at number 15. But Mac Jones minus 140 at William Hill today, followed by Fields at plus 130, and Trey Lance is at 4-1 to be the number 3 overall pick. So let's get Jon Berger in here, studies the draft each and every day, and John's going to give us some draft props, beginning with who goes number 3 overall. Who you got, John?
You know, Chris, I've gone back and forth on this one, as you can tell on the boards. People are all over the place on this one. I think at the end of the day, I'm going to go Justin Fields. I know that's not the popular pick as we sit here today. I just go back and I look at the body of work for both players. I don't think you can go wrong with Mac Jones or either player in this position. I just think in today's game, when everything's equal, and it's pretty equal, when you look at their numbers, you look at their production, their leadership skills, intangibles are incredibly important in the NFL. But I think at the end of the day, if all things are equal, which these guys are sitting there right at equal, I think you go with the mobile athletic quarterback, which is clearly Justin Fields. The decisions they're ultimately going to have to make in that number 3 spot is, if you look at Mac Jones, this guy is very subtle in what he does in the pocket. No, he's not going to line up and run a 4-4 or a 4-5, but this guy moves around the pocket and avoids pressure as good as anybody I've ever seen in the college game. So you're going to have to layer that up against the athleticism of Justin Fields. I've gone back and forth. I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these guys. It's just today, as I sit here, I'd go with the more athletic quarterback. Therefore, I'm going with Justin Fields.
And plus money at plus 130, at least for now. Again, like we said, it keeps going back and forth each and every day, it seems like, between who the favorite is to go number 3. 5 quarterbacks could go in the top 10. The question becomes, are we going to get that record-tying 6th quarterback in the first round? John, it's heavily juiced to 5. Is it worth the value at plus 350 on the over?
I don't think so. I think this one, I think you take the under. This is not one of those areas in the prop bets where you stretch. Don't chase a risky bet, because there's plenty of good stuff out there, and we're going to get into it later in the show. There's some serious value in terms of prop bets in this draft. I don't think this is one that you chase. I look at a guy, the only thing that could blow that up, though, Chris, is Davis Mills. Now, this is a guy out of Stanford that's only started 11 games. You know as well as I know, sometimes when you get in the heat of the battle, you're in those war rooms in the draft. You know, people can take a stretch. I think Davis Mills would be a stretch to even look at in the first round. You could see it happen, but I think play a smart bet here. You don't need to chase the money in this situation. I think you take the under, and you know which 5 quarterbacks are going to go. And I think it's pretty consistent about where they're going to go in that draft. Don't chase the money. Play this one a little bit safe. There's plenty of prop bets later on in this draft, and we'll get to them later in the show here.
All right, first non-quarterback likely going to go at number 4 to the Falcons unless they trade back out of there. But we should get quarterbacks 1, 2, 3. Question becomes, who's the first non-quarterback drafted? A lot of mocks will have Kyle Pitts. Some will have Jamar Chase. Some will go offensive lineman and Penei Sewell. Who do you like?
Kyle Pitts is a game changer, in my opinion. If you're a defensive coordinator in the NFL, and if you talk to the various defensive coordinators around the country that have played at this guy, it's very hard not to get destroyed in a mismatch problem when you're playing him, because he's got, you know, the 6'6" height. He's got the body type, he's a big body, and he's got wide receiver speed. So no matter how you try to game plan him, you're in a mismatch situation. I think it's clearly Kyle Pitts. Now, where it gets interesting for me in the draft is if something happens, somebody trades up, assume Kyle Pitts doesn't come off, and then you ask the question, the first non-defensive player, then you start looking at a Jamar Chase and a Penei Sewell, maybe down at the Bengals. If I'm a GM sitting there with the Bengals, I would have to anchor to Penei Sewell over Jamar Chase, because if I was sitting with my defensive coordinator, when you're defending a wide receiver, you can always shade a safety. You can double team a wide receiver. When you go up against the left tackle like Penei Sewell, you don't have a lot of answers for that. So I think clearly it's Kyle Pitts, but if you have to anchor to a secondary position as you consider this bet, I would go Penei Sewell over Jamar Chase here in this situation.
And Kyle Pitts has been going number 4 to the Falcons in many of our mock drafts on CBSSports.com.
That guy's amazing.
Let's move on.
Amazing. He's a game changer.
No question about it, and could be the highest tight end drafted in about 50 years. We haven't had a tight end drafted inside the top 5.
I don't even sure you should put him at tight end. He's almost like his own position, like an H-back of some type. Whatever team gets him, the offensive coordinator is going to have a ball because this guy gives you a lot of flexibility about where you can line him up. They're going to have a ball with his flexibility.
So Kyle Pitts is the pick to be the first non-quarterback drafted. He is the favorite and the pick from Jon Berger. As we continue on with props here, running backs. Najee Harris is the favorite to be the first running back off the board. I think for a while it was neck and neck there with Travis Etienne. Some of our guys actually like Etienne more, but it seems like he's slipping a little bit. Who do you like?
I think Najee Harris is the safe bet here. Again, this is another one in this rundown where I don't think you go after, you don't chase the money here. I think with Najee Harris, you look at his body of work, you look what he's done at Alabama, you look at pass pro. Running backs in today's game are not super popular in terms of spending a first-round draft pick. I think Najee Harris is that good. I think another area of the game that he doesn't get a lot of publicity about, but the scouts know about, is his ability to catch the football as well. So he's a big back, he's durable, he can be an every down back, he can catch the football, he's good in pass pro. I think when you wind up that skill set, I think it's a little bit better than Travis Etienne. And by the way, you could see a scenario where Etienne drops to the second round, which I think would be a valuable draft pick, and there's going to be some value in the second and third round that could involve Etienne. But I think in this situation, given his body of work coming out of that Nick Saban program, his ability to catch the ball, run the ball, be an every down back, super physical, he's got the right build. I think you take the safe pick, you go Najee here.
This draft all about quarterbacks and playmakers. Probably the first 8 picks are going to be offensive players. So who's the first defensive player to come off the board around pick 9 or so?
I think it's Surtain. I think Patrick Surtain. I think that's an easy choice. The Dallas Cowboys can't defend anybody. Their defense was atrocious last year. This is an area where I think this is a no-brainer. I think you put the money here on Surtain. The Cowboys need a lockdown corner. They need everything. They need linebackers. They've been nicked up, banged up at that position. Their defensive line can't get to the quarterback. But I think in this situation, you go Patrick Surtain. I think that's a no-brainer, and you load up on that bet.
Broncos have the 9th pick. Cowboys have the 10th pick. Could probably be 2 cornerbacks going back-to-back there. Both teams in need of a cornerback. How about first defensive lineman off the board, John?
I think Jalen Phillips. I like that out of Miami. I think when you look at the various teams and how this draft is going to unpack and unfold, you could also see a Christian Barmore out of Alabama. Kwity Paye continues to kind of move around in terms of the top picks, but if you're sitting in that GM chair and you're trying to make a safe bet, you're spending a ton of cash in that first round. I think you go with the safe bet. I think it's Jalen Phillips over Kwity Paye. Kwity Paye's build is a little bit slight compared to Phillips. Therefore, that's why I would make that pick. But I think he can get to the quarterback. He's very flexible. You can line him up in different positions, either his hand in the dirt, on the edge. I think he create a mismatch for you. I think Jalen Phillips is a smart bet here in terms of how props unfold in this draft.
All right, one more prop, and it's a fun one, especially because it goes deep into the draft. It'll keep you interested all the way to the last pick. It's Sam Ehlinger draft position, and it's set at 258.5. There are only 259 picks, so he's right there in Mr. Irrelevant range. You going under or over?
I'm going under. This is a simple one for me. And Chris, let's put ourselves in a GM chair for a second. What do you see, right? I see a guy that's made 43 starts at the University of Texas. I see a guy that's averaged over 62% completion rate. And I understand how these things go with the draft. You start trying to label players. You start trying to find comps. You do all those kind of things. Look, this guy was a 4-year starter, started as a freshman coming out of Westlake, out of Austin, put up big numbers. He's a leader. He's got all the intangibles. And not for nothing here, Chris, but you kind of look at Texas quarterbacks and you say, well, Vince Young, Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy's been in the league for 12 years. So do I think do I feel comfortable that Sam Ehlinger, if I'm a GM, I look at a guy that started 43 games, he's got all those leadership skills, and people will question his arm strength and all those other things. But look what he was asked to do at the University of Texas. Look at the offense he was asked to run. Because in that offense, they weren't exactly trying to knock the top off of defenses. His average pass completion over his 4-year career was only 8 yards. Do you know any offenses in the NFL with an average kind of play structure that goes 8 yards? My answer to that is yes. There's a lot of them. So I think you look at that skill set, you look at the intangibles, you look at the leadership skills. He's very durable and he's a leader. I think this is a no-brainer. You take the under in this situation.
A lot is being made about how the Rams never have a first-round draft pick again this season. They could go 7-8 years between first-round draft picks. But when you look at the first round compared to day 2, the second and third round, do you see much of a drop-off this year?
I think there's going to be a lot of value in the second and third rounds. And if you look at the data over the last 10 years in the NFL, those teams that end up in the Super Bowl and consistent playoff are absolutely making terrific picks in the second, third, and fourth round. Look at a guy like Javonte Williams, the running back out of North Carolina. There's a scenario you can probably go out there and pick him up in the second round. And I would argue that there's very little difference between him and ETN. Look at Elijah Molden, the quarterback out of Washington. The defensive back can be a lockdown guy. I think you can pick him up in the second. I think you look at Elijah Moore, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss. Davis Mills, the quarterback that we talked about early in the show, only 11 starts, but he may be worth the risk. Kyle Trask, if you remember, Chris, back in October, we were always talking about Kyle Trask being a first rounder. Mac Jones was talking about going in the fourth. They have basically flip-flopped. So I think there's a lot of value here. Not for nothing. What if Travis Etienne drops to the second? So I think those 6 guys that I just talked about are going to create incredible value opportunities, so much so that if I'm a GM and I look at guys that I can pick up the second, I would seriously consider getting rid of my first to pick up more 2, 3, and 4s, because that's how you build championship teams in the NFL. The first round is a risky spot unless you feel awfully confident about it.
That's Jon Berger with us here on HQ. First round of the draft is next Thursday, a week from today. Second and third rounds Friday, 4 through 7 on Saturday. Let's recap the picks as we prop it up with Jon Berger. He likes Justin Fields to go 3rd overall, though Fields is now plus money. Mac Jones has jumped in front of him as the favorite to go number 3 just today. I mean, it changes almost daily at that 3 position. Going to be really interesting. He says don't fall for Davis Mills going in the first round. He likes the under, even though there's a lot of juice on the under 5.5 quarterbacks in the first round. Kyle Pitts, the first non-quarterback, probably at number 4. Maybe to the Falcons there unless they trade down. Najee Harris, the first running back. Patrick Surtain, first defensive player. Jalen Phillips, first defensive lineman. And under 258.5 for the draft position of Sam Ehlinger.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.